politics. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make this video, especially because I'm not wearing a suit. But I finally feel like it's time for me to jump into the world of politics. With the election coming up in America in 2 weeks, I felt like it was finally valid for people to really start sharing about their thoughts and opinions about the election. So I'm gonna do this full Philip DeFranco style. I'm gonna give you all of the facts and data about the social media midterm election first. Then I'm gonna give you my opinion, because this is the internet and opinions are valid. So in this video, we're gonna be taking a look at political candidates on the 2 major social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. And just so we're clear, none of this includes paid political ads. This is just the organic posts. So let's start with what we know from previous elections, and that is that Democrats tend to own Instagram and Republicans tend to own Facebook. And that still seems to be mostly true here in 2018. After the 2016 election, I feel like the Democrats really said they needed to step up their social media game because they kind of got crushed, specifically because of the amount of catch-up that they had to play with Donald Trump's Twitter account. Now, there are a lot of other things we can talk about with Donald Trump's Twitter, and that is not for this video. For now, I want to talk about the most recent New York Times article that just came out, titled, "Who is Winning the Social Media Midterms?" This was fascinating. In 2018, data is actually showing that according to engagement, we'll get into that in a second, the Democrats are winning Instagram and Facebook by a lot, like 8 million interactions in a month, a lot, which is almost 3 times in some cases the amount that the Republicans are getting. And also, just so it's clear, this does not immediately translate into voters. This is just social media engagement. Also, internet people are fantastically lazy. And another interesting point is one social media interaction doesn't exactly mean one follower or supporter. The way that this data was collected uses Facebook and Instagram's API to scrape for numbers. And in lieu of all of the hacking and drama that's been going over on Facebook, they made a lot of changes to what the API actually gives out. So this means there's no more like reading what the comments say, it's just numbers. So an interaction on Facebook or Instagram, whether it's positive or negative, just gets counted as one interaction. The heart emoji and the crying face emoji equal the same thing, even though as we know, they are not. So taking a look at this first graph, it really does look like the Democrats are winning by a landslide. And this could be for all kinds of reasons. Maybe it was content, maybe it was collaboration, maybe it was some sort of world event, could be anything. Or maybe it's just they've been engaging with a lot of other people. Growth for a political candidate can come from a lot of different places, and later in this video we're going to talk specifically about my advice for growing. But I wanted to talk about one of the specific issues revolving around Democrats that the New York Times calls the superstar problem. The Democrats, whether you like it or not, have a lot of celebrities that are either in office, were in office, or are currently running. And the big problem there is they don't seem to be doing a good job sharing the wealth. People like Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren are doing really wonderful jobs on social media. All of those people either have a seat or aren't running right now. So all of their interaction is really just going to supporting a movement, which is fine, but when as a party you're trying to elect certain candidates, I feel like it might behoove the party to share some of that wealth. Now you're probably like, okay, but if Hillary Clinton shouted out Beto O'Rourke, that wouldn't really do anything, would it? It actually would, because as we've learned with social media, a movement of people, a mass migration to a certain hashtag, profile, or place really ignites an algorithm to boost whoever is involved with that. So even say Hillary Clinton shouts out Beto,
"Hey there, this is Beto O'Rourke."
My bad. That engagement isn't exactly local to Texas, but because there's so much engagement going toward his account, anything that he posts is going to get seen by more and more people, therefore promoted more and more and more. So anyone searching for anything in Texas on social media is way more likely to find Beto than maybe Ted. Also, just so we're very clear, a Hillary Beto shoutout is not exactly a great idea because I feel like the people of Texas really don't like Hillary. Thanks, Chase. But let's keep playing with that example just for numbers' sake. Hillary Clinton has 4 million followers on Instagram, and her followers are outstandingly engaged with her content. Other than the 6 or 7 month break she took recently, which is fine in the grand scheme of the world, but if you really want to grow on Instagram, bad. So say she posts something on Instagram promoting another candidate. At first glance, you might be saying, oh, that's not so great because none of the people are local. None of the people can actually vote for her. But say that this was something that was pre-organized. Maybe it is for Beto. If he was planning for this and set up a solid content bed for all of Hillary's followers to come over, he could really start a massive engagement spike on his profile, which would blow him up, even more so than he already is. Meaning every time he posted from there on out, because of the amount of engagement coming from Hillary's account, if he was just attacking local hashtags and his photos were blowing up, his photos would just sit at the top of trending and related on every single hashtag he chose. Think of it moving engagement instead of moving local followers. So if Beto is posting for local people and has this massive influx of engagement coming in, all of the posts for those local people are going to explode and be the only things that they see. That is, if people are searching for local things, I understand that. But according to what we know about Instagram and Facebook's algorithm, local is very, very important. And taking advantage of this would be very smart. Think of every time you post on social media as a droplet hitting a puddle of water. You know how the ripples go out around the puddle? Every time you post on social media, it's very much the same. On YouTube, you can literally tag the exact coordinates of where you're posting the video, and then it recommends out from there. Now, I'm very aware that there are a lot of other things that need to be considered here before doing just a simple shout out. But this is just a quick way off the top of my head of boosting everyone's engagement and leveraging audiences so that the Democrats don't have such a big superstar problem. Engagement is engagement, and I know that that's important, but when it's not going to candidates who are currently running for election, it's really just building careers. And that's fine, because that's probably what they're trying to do anyways. But if you're the Democratic Party trying to make waves in an election, this may be something to consider. The New York Times reported that if you removed all of the superstars, so Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Beto, and Hillary, interactions over the past 30-day period of data that they took were about the same from Democrats and Republicans. And that's very important, because the races that actually matter aren't the ones that are in the major states that you hear about on your social, because the ones you hear about are in your bubble. Because the ones that do matter are like Ohio and the purple states where it's kind of just all up in the air. But think, with a little bit of strategy and the amount of followers that the Democrats control, this could be very easily remedied. And if you're curious why this is happening and there seems to be more engagement on the Democratic side than the Republican side, that's because these top candidates probably have digital media teams who are focused on creating content for young people on Instagram, because that's where they are. I talk about this on this channel all the time, but the moment you start being dedicated toward creating content online, the more success you will immediately start to see. So the politicians who are out there just posting to post, you're not really gonna find much success, because that's just like not how that works. So here's something that the Republican Party needs to think about. Someone like Beto is actually kind of dangerous to them because his messaging is so viral. He has a content team that has partnered with other pages and got his content reposted because it's easily shareable. Do you remember his viral video that blew him up recently? It was everywhere. The shock and awe of tweets can only really do so much to grow you as a candidate. But video content, you can really share emotion and get people moved. And that's what Beto did perfectly. So Instagram obviously has a much more millennial and younger audience, which definitely tends to lean more liberal. But other than those superstars, there doesn't seem to be a lot of effort on the Democrat side going into Instagram. They're putting that effort into Facebook because Facebook is the real battlegrounds. The New York Times reported that Facebook is used by 65% of Americans over 50 years old, and 56% of rural users, and 60% of users with a high school degree or less. And if you're from America, you might be familiar that a lot of these groups tend to lean more conservative. So it makes complete sense that the Republicans would favor Facebook and the Democrats would attempt to be more competitive on Facebook. Because for the Democrats, those are the votes they're trying to take back. But here's the thing that the Democrats may not have considered, or they did, and I don't know. But Facebook is going to be much more difficult to crack, because infiltrating someone's Facebook circle is incredibly difficult. Remember when we were hearing about all the Russian hacking a couple months ago and we were like, oh my God, what is that? I want to present the idea of what these Russian hackers were actually doing and how it's not that scary and something that you could probably actually do at home on a much smaller scale. It's very similar to the way a lot of the Instagram users I work with have gotten famous. It's essentially creating fan pages for yourself and posting your content on all of those, all linking back to you. So this is something that Donald Trump did very well. There are tools out there that allow you to manage tons and tons and tons of Facebook and Instagram accounts all at once. So if you created 15 Facebook pages, all posting pro-Republican content, all linking back to Donald Trump, and all of these accounts just get recommended to people who already like Donald Trump and they just get more and more Republican content, it's very easy to control everything that someone sees on social media, especially if these accounts are posting frequently, which they were, and it was multiple times a day. Now, the Russian hacking issue is that all of these pages were being filled with fake information. That's why we hear the term fake news constantly. But imagine doing the same thing with an overwhelming amount of real information, what that could do. So the difficulty of infiltrating someone's Facebook circle is overcoming the amount of content that they've already liked. So say someone followed Donald Trump, they like Donald Trump stuff, they like a couple pages about Donald Trump, it's a good chance they're seeing a lot of Donald Trump content. Now, one more right-leaning account comes in and tries to post content to them. It's not really gonna fit in with everything else that's on their page, therefore it's gonna make it really difficult to infiltrate their circle. And since they've already engaged with all that other content, Facebook's gonna serve the other content to them first, and therefore they're gonna like that stuff instead of your stuff. Your stuff's gonna be way down the feed. So food for thought. Let's take a look at a few more conservative-leaning races, shall we? This chart here shows 5 states where the Republicans are actually controlling the Facebook engagement. But here's something fascinating. Take a look at the race in Tennessee. The Democratic candidate actually has more followers than the Republican candidate on Instagram and got 3 times as much engagement, yet she is still leading in the polls. Just changing up the strategy could really unify a party and grow a following and therefore maybe convert to more votes. I mean, the fact that we're even able to talk about Beto is because of that viral video that he put out. Do you know he had an entire vlog channel that only got like a couple hundred views a video? No, you didn't. He probably realized this because competing with someone like Ted Cruz, who has an insane amount of name recognition, is going to be very, very difficult. And he's gonna have to really make a name for himself to shine. And to be honest, he did it. Beto has about 800,000 more Facebook interactions in that 30-day period than Ted Cruz did. And according to what we were just talking about, Facebook is where Ted should be winning. Again, important point, does not convert to votes, we're just talking about engagement. But there's something to be said about content being the thing that's blowing these candidates up. Content is key in 2018 on social media. Your message is very important, I know, I hear you, candidate from insert state here. If you're not making content, you're not gonna reach people. And when I say content, I mean examples like this. The New York Times reported that in Georgia, Brian Kemp, the Republican candidate, has outperformed his opponent, Stacey Abrams, the Democratic challenger, on Facebook, despite Mrs. Abrams having thousands more followers than he does. In that 30-day time, Mr. Kemp received 90% more Facebook interaction than she did because of one popular post where he accused Mrs. Abrams of taking money from radical liberals who want to turn Georgia into the new California. There's a lot there. I'm really not here to talk about the type of content that people are posting. I'm here to talk about the fact that that is gonna fire people up. And clearly it worked. Followers don't matter at this point. That content is just going to do well because, well, that's clickbait. But what's cool about this is some candidates, it looks like, really know where they should be pouring their time. Even if they have less followers, they can still make the same impact that they need just through their content. And they know what platform that content should live on. A screenshot of that article would probably not have done well on Instagram at all. No one would have cared. But then there's something like the Kavanaugh effect, which gets both sides of the aisle completely fired up. For weeks in Indiana, in the Senate race, the Republican candidate was trailing the Democratic candidate by a pretty solid amount of engagement. Remember, not votes, engagement. But when the Kavanaugh stuff started happening, almost specifically on that day, the Republican candidate took off. And then the 4 weeks following the Kavanaugh hearings, the Republican candidate completely dominated the Democrat. Something for you to think of is even though these controversies weren't so wonderful, they're still really wonderful for social media interaction. When Donald Trump was running for president, things just kind of kept coming out about him. Therefore, more and more people were hashtagging, more and more people were adding him, more and more people were just talking about what was going on. And subsequently, he became more popular. And then take it out of the political world. When Logan Paul posted the Suicide Forest video, which was a huge deal, he actually gained followers. It sucks, but that's the truth. That's how this works. It's not really even about what side of the conversation you're on. It's about getting the tags and contributing to a conversation. So whether we like it or not, participating in that conversation grew a lot of people. A lot of YouTubers who just made videos about the situation grew followers, tagged Logan. And I think in this instance, this is exactly what this Republican candidate did. Kind of latched onto that story and grew. Like it or not, it worked. It's a valid strategy. The New York Times reported, among the 9 most competitive Senate races on Facebook, the Republican interaction rose by 94% during the Kavanaugh hearings. Love it or hate it, that is wild. That is nuts. The political landscape on social media is fascinating. There's so much to be learned here. Whether you're a small business or a brand or just an influencer yourself, is there a conversation that you can partake in? Or some sort of person you can respond to in that conversation, or just some way to kind of like grab on and go for the ride. Whether you're defending it, hating on it, or just saying something about how everyone's hating it or defending it, you're still a part of it. And you're still probably gonna grow because you're participating in that conversation. So learn that. Controversy is almost key at this point, and I thought that that was fascinating. Okay, we're kind of done with like the meat and potatoes of this video. Now we're gonna get into my personal recommendations for politicians on social media. Let's do this like a speed round. Collaborate whenever possible. I understand ego's intentions are weird on Twitter. Whether you like it or not, replying to someone does share your audience, and that's gonna grow you no matter what. Even if you get followers that don't like you so much, still another follower, still got that money. Big picture, let's think about social media here. I know collaboration is probably a weird thing that because I'm not super invested in politics, I don't know a lot about, But the more politicians that you can get your followers to follow means the more times politics are going to show up on their social media, means the higher chances that they're talking about voting, means the more votes you're potentially going to get. Give your social media a face and talk to people. Video is everything. My really good friends Colin and Samir, I actually linked it up here, made a wonderful video about politicians on YouTube. There are some amazing points in that video. Stick to a schedule. Tweet every day, post on Instagram every other day, have some sort of schedule so people can get used to the amount of content you're posting. Either you or someone that works for you should try and tweet back to every single tweet that you receive. That inclusion into your brand makes people feel so important, and we've learned this from Wendy's and Moon Pies with their wonderful Twitter profiles. And look at people like Norm. Norm may not have the most similar brand to you, but he sure is doing something right, and I think that there could be a lot for you guys to learn from him. Content is key in 2018. Beto is huge because of that viral video he posted. The internet is a wild world, and if you fuel it, it will ignite. On Twitter, to be honest, I think you should get a little more risky. Subtweet everyone, meaning tweet negative things about them, but don't at them. People will know who you're talking about, and it's just so much drama. People responding to the things that the president said is news. And your name showing up in his comments and your name showing up just around what he's doing, good or bad, will build you up. It'll also probably get picked up by the news, get you on TV, things like that. The Republicans used the Kavanaugh situation to explode their engagement. And personally, I hate the situation. But riding that wave is not bad at all. It's gonna happen anyways, you might as well latch on. But even better than just talking about it, make content about it, make a video about it. Remember like last year or something when there was that bill that came out? I don't even remember what it was about. But Elizabeth Warren made that video where she was like, this is the bill. I can't read it in the amount of time that they've given me. How am I supposed to read this? That grew her following like wildfire because obviously that got people fired up. She was fired up. Everyone's fired up. Let's follow Elizabeth Warren. See if you can learn something from that. Is there something that you can contribute on video that got you fired up? You're a person too. If you got angry in politics, someone else probably will too. Share that point. Again, I definitely understand that like some things you can't share, and I don't want to pretend that I don't know that. Use discretion, but talk about stuff. Try and be more transparent with things maybe you don't talk as much about, because we obviously don't know what we don't know, so tell us something we don't know. And in words of our great leader Jake Paul, post every day, bro. I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this. Shoot me a text if you ever want to chat social media. I'd love to set up a time to call. Thanks for watching.